Uh, Let me welcome everyone once again and just give a small introduction that, this exhibition, which is the VHT Business Conclave and Expo, first time for the elevator industry to go virtual event like this, has been a good success. And we launched it yesterday and we had thousands of people who have attended the event already. And attendees were from more than 72 countries, almost 74 countries. We could see people logged in. So this is a good, I feel it's a good opportunity for all of us to test the potential of virtual event or technology to some extent. And we had very, very engaging, seminars from yesterday. We spoke on various important topics, on reviving the market to all the codes which is specially required for the infrastructure, how intelligent an elevator needs to be, how do you optimize the building. So there were many, many topics which were covered. And the best part would be that this whole thing can be, will be there in archives with us in our website, and people will be able to benefit from it even after the event is over. So I think that's another benefit of the technology. Otherwise, generally in a physical event, you need to record it, and then later, much later, it takes about a couple of days to things to come. So I think we are all moving towards a faster life, so things will be all in place then. So what I would do is, like I discussed, our panel discussion now is on elevator safety at site and for people, and we have a lot of eminent speakers here with us from an industry leaders, I can say. One of the things which I would like to especially say is that we have Mr. Sarvesh Javadekar here. He in the last minute he agreed our invitation because Mr. Rishi was not able to join because of some personal emergency, and I'm very, very thankful to him for accepting our invitation and joining us here. And welcome to Susan and Mr. Rajgopalan. We are just waiting for Mr. Soman to join. But in the meantime, what I would do, the panelists who are there, let me introduce them. Okay, so let me start with Mr. Sarvesh Javadekar itself. He's a director at Vilas Javadekar Developer Company based out of Pune. He's a civil engineer and an alumni of MIT and IIM Bangalore. He has over 15 years of experience, and his expertise include real estate, marine structure, water supply, and effluent treatment. And he's also a core team member or committee member of CREDAI Maharashtra. And he's also a CREDAI national member, also CII Green Building Council. I hope what I've said is correct, Mr. Javadekar.
Yes, and absolutely.
Okay,
thank you for introducing.
Welcome once again. And let me introduce you to my next panelist, which is Susan Marcus. Susan, thank you for coming here. You're the general manager of key accounts at Otis Elevator Company. Susan completed an MBA from IIT Kanpur and is a BTech from Thrissur. So, Susan, I'm also from Kerala, so we know from that angle we are country cousins, okay? So, she joined Otis in 2007 and is responsible for key account sales and major elevator buyers, handling agent and distributor channel in Sri Lanka and Maldives. She has over 16 years of experience in capital goods industry, heavy engineering in product sales, marketing, and key account development. She has been an organizer for marketing and communication events with CREDAI, CII, IGBC, and was a product manager at Ingersoll Rand India before Otis. Welcome, Susan. My next panelist is Mr. Rajgopalan Ranganathan. He's Senior Vice President, Field Quality and Excellence at Schindler India Private Limited. He holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and has more than 16 years of experience in the elevator escalator industry across India and Singapore. He now takes care of safety, quality, technical functions representing Schindler in India in the BIS Technical Committee for Elevators Escalator. Mr. Ranganathan has worked in engineering, research and development, supply chain and technical support. Welcome, Mr. Ranganathan. I'm still waiting for Mr. Soman. Is he finding it difficult to join? Okay. Let me introduce our moderator, Mr. Uday Kulkarni. I know Uday is a tall leader in the industry and most people know him, but it's my privilege to again introduce him. He's retired as a president of Schindler in India and South Asia. He has over 30 years of experience in the elevator industry. He also is a recipient of Schindler Global Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019. And now, post-retirement, he started a company called Utopias, a new venture in the field of coaching, mentoring, training, and consultancy. So thank you everyone for joining, and we hope to have a very, very engaging discussion today on the safety of people and elevators at site. So I think we will just give another minute for Mr. Soman. I think there is a little bit of trouble he's facing to join. Uday, would you like to run the slides in the meantime, or would you like to have a conversation to just give a brief on what we are going to discuss or something till he joins?
How much time do you think?
He's just trying, maybe a minute or so. Let me just try.
Check your email now, sir. Check your email now. You will have a new link.
Like you said, technology is good, but sometimes it can be really painful.
Yeah, but learning hard way is always good, right?
Yeah.
Learning hard way is always good. Okay, though I have sent, just to brief the people, though I have sent standard kind of framed this thing, you guys can feel natural and be very, very talk from the heart, whatever you feel about it. More important is we need to make it more effective, more interesting. And in fact, the other panels we had last 1 day and half day, we are in fact as a group, you must be in the group already formed. More or less, we in principle have decided that whatever we discuss, whatever we suggest, maybe we try and carry it forward in a form of an implementation, so we are able to contribute positively to the elevator and the escalator industry. So that's the intention of having this. It's just not a panel discussion. We discuss, people hear, and we forget about it. No, that's not the intention of having this panel discussion. So we need to really, at least, if not everything, some of it we need to carry forward and look at the possibilities of implementation in your own way. Maybe if we need to garner some support from your corporate companies, maybe the group support, overseas support, maybe some ideas which come out from the industry. Like yesterday, we had very good ideas come out from the real estate industry. In fact, Sarvesh, you would probably appreciate that. We had people from Hiranandanis, from Rahejas, from Lokhandwalas, talking about beautiful collaborations between the elevator people and the real estate people, which will make everyone's life much more easy, rather than many times people call it blame games and all. We can do a very, very better collaboration, kind of a partnership. So that's what came out of yesterday's panel discussion. And obviously safety being the most important thing at the site and most important for the people, which was never a case some years ago. In fact, I'm going to start with a slide which I somehow could get it from the archives. I will show that to you moment Mr. Soman joins in. So I don't know how much time, Ranita?
No, he's not able to see the link. He says just.
Or you think I should start?
I think what I would do, I'll just introduce him, because as and when he joins, then we can just start, Okay, so for the benefit of all the people who are here.
I will start with the presentation.
Yeah, then first let me just introduce him, and then we can, start with the presentation. So we have another panelist who's just trying to join, is a very senior person from the industry, who retired from Otis. He's Mr. Sudhir Soman. He retired in 2010 as a general manager in quality and EHS. He completed Masters in Science in Quality Management from BITS Pilani. He holds a postgraduate diploma in Operation Research and Management from Bombay University. He has a BE from Osmania University with specialization in electrical and electronics engineering. He has been accredited as a professor in quality management at the ITO University. He was responsible for managing the quality function and safety, health and environment protection functions at Otis in India and company-wide quality system implementation, ISO 9000 certification and product and process quality improvement. I'm very sure that he should be able to join us any minute. So, sir, you can, Uday sir, you can start, and then as and when he comes, we will share the questions with him also.
Okay, once again, welcome to all the panelists. Hoping that Mr. Soman will join soon. I want to begin this panel discussion with a very interesting small slide presentation, which I could get from the archives of a very olden time. So just give me a minute to do that. Okay, yeah. I'll start from the beginning. All of you, except Mr. Javadekar, but he has seen the building industry. This is one of the typical sites of in New York City, how they used to kind of construct with steel beams. Just a few of it. Can you see that guy hanging on that without any full body harness? That fellow sitting on the top, bolting the nuts. Can you see this? They are drilling the steel and right at the top, if you see the other buildings, you can imagine what the height is all about. See this guy just sitting on the top and doing whatever building industry or the elevator industry. They are in fact putting up a girder. I can't believe this. They're saying, move it. This building won't build itself. So the passion which they were working in, but not a single safety precaution taken. Guy just sitting like he's sitting on a horseback, and the other fellow also is just behind him. See this person just lying, and you see the heights. What is more important is, can you imagine any person today standing at such heights without any protection? I just can't imagine. And this is the height of it. Having lunch at the height without any full body harness. They have their full lunch box. They are sleeping, in fact. Can you imagine that? Again, here, same thing. See, you see the height of the buildings and what it is. This guy has gone up the rope. We can't even imagine anyone doing that, any company even allowing that. And this is freezing winter, glows up for freezing winter, not for show off rigors. That's what is the comment made, right? Then again, putting the machine. In fact, the machine is being launched, and those days the machines used to be much heavier. Elevator machine used to be much heavier than what we can see today. The welding being done, the trucks, and this is the building at the ground floor level, at the road level. Again, the same thing, right? So, if you see all this, and today the kind of precautions, the kind of stress, the kind of whatever we do on safeties is just not enough. So what would be the kind of take on this? Let me start with probably Raj Gopalan, who has been a hands-on safety and in charge for safety for Schindler India today. So what would you be? You must not have seen these pictures, Raj, right? So seeing that, and these are real pictures, they are not fabricated pictures. So we are not into the real pictures. So what is, I would like each person to react to this.
Perfect, sir.
First reaction came to my mind is they are fearless. If I would have been in their position, I would have rejected this. So that's the one thing coming to my mind.
Uday, Mr. Sudhir is already just like to welcome.
Okay, is he entering the room?
He's already there.
Oh, he's already there, but you can't see him.
Mr. Sudhir, can you hear us?
You can see his name. You can see his name, and connection is not very good. There he is.
Okay.
You're there, Mr. Soman. Can see you.
Mr. Sudhir, can you hear us now?
Yeah. Can you hear us, Mr. Soman? I think the phone must be on, probably. I don't know. Mr. Soman, can you hear us? Hello?
I think Uday will continue because I think there is his
Okay,
internet
fine. I
has a
think
little bit.
let Rajgopalan was reacting to the statistics I showed on the holding times and safety. Yeah, go ahead, Raj.
Okay. So the main thing is we have learned many things from the mistakes, but those days we don't have kind of a technologies available now. So to me, what we would focus now is safety is not such a kind of a thing we need to take a risk. So with the current technologies available, we should ensure that the risk all are foreseen, identified, and mitigated with the proper things. So we need to be very proactive in terms of safety, as we cannot afford to lose a life of a person, even it may be an employee or if it even at a common public. So we should be more proactive in terms of safety.
Okay, Sarvesh, what would be your reaction?
So my first reaction was that these guys are probably from Tibet or from the Himalayan region, because they are used to, only they can be used to these kind of crazy heights. But all in all, I think I completely reciprocate with what Rajgopalanji has to say, because nowadays safety has become one of the most important, and rightly so, because the cost of human life is ever increasing. We have to respect human rights. We have to respect each and every worker's right to live. So, and as principal employers, it is extremely important that we take full efforts to ensure that maximum precaution is taken. But kudos to those Empire State workers. I think it's amazing what they have achieved in those times. I think partially I feel sometimes we go a little overboard and be a little more overcautious sometimes. So a little sense of adrenaline is also essential in at work. So
Yeah, Susan?
I simply love the example of the Empire State Building because it's such an amazing landmark, and the moment you see that photograph of that building, it replicates all the emotions attached to the New York City. If you, it's a lesser known fact possibly, but this was the tallest building in the world for over 40 years, and it was constructed in under 12 months. A completely amazing structure going up to about 440 meters tall. I cannot imagine the challenges that as a project management team or the architect or the builder, the contractor, how they could get this marvel together in such a short period. And all said and done, urbanization was not possible without elevators. Vertical transportation is an integral part of tall buildings. So an iconic structure like that would have tremendous challenges from the VT perspective to get those elevators into that building, that get the technology which would be right for this application, for the kind of passenger experience expected in a building of that sort. So it's kudos to our engineers, our designers to have made that possible in that period. And I also feel that this challenge which is always there, this race which is always there among the real estate industry to get the tallest, the smartest, the biggest installation out there, it continuously challenges the vertical transportation industry, and hence the pressure on safety. In those days, yes, in 1930s, possibly life could have been compromised, safety could have been compromised. But today, it's definitely not possible for you to achieve the speed required in the industry. At the same time, we have to keep safety in our hands.
Yeah, Mr. Suman, can you hear us now? If you can put your mic on, Mr. Suman, mic. Can you hear us? And we still have a problem. So Anita, can you just look at it? I think he cannot even hear us. So that is the problem. Can you hear?
Yeah. What I do, I'll just call him again and see if, because
I
he's
think in the
there, but I
meantime,
think he's not able to hear us.
I will continue. So,
Yeah.
okay, the next question comes, 20 years ago, I'm not going now, probably more than 80 years ago, but 20 years ago, all elevators were installed on scaffolding. And very gradually, people started moving towards scaffoldless installation. How did this transition take place? I would, in fact, ask probably Raj Gopalan, because he has worked in Singapore, he has seen the scaffoldless installation, and then probably a builder's perspective from Sarvesh's point of view will address this question. Scaffoldless. I know, Sarvesh, that most of the elevators today are now installed with a scaffoldless installation method. So
Yes, of course.
We can start. How did this graduation from a scaffolding elevator, the wooden scaffolding, which was famously known as bamboo and ballis, bamboos, I suppose, horizontal and ballis vertical. How did this evolution take place in the last 20 years?
Mainly it is because of the urbanizations happening in the industry. For example, when the rise of the building is getting higher and higher, we need to find out an innovative way to do an installation. For doing a scaffolding for a height of a 70 meters, 80 meters tower itself, it's equivalent to installing an elevator. So necessity makes us inventing a new things, so which comes with a scaffoldless installation. So scaffoldless installation brings efficiency into every function, and customer also can have the elevator quickly installed. Industries can also install the elevators in a quicker manner. So efficiency comes into picture so that urbanizations can happen in a smarter way. And it ensures that we are not losing or we are not compromising anything on the safety of the scaffolding or requirements during installation.
Okay, good. Sarvesh, your point of view?
Yeah, I think, so I remember, so my experience with scaffoldless has been a little over 5 years. So initially, when scaffolding was the norm, and for high rise, the time required for erection and dismantling of scaffolding was also a concern. So scaffoldless technology, one, it brings in a lot of time efficiency. It reduces time required for installation, and at the same time, it is one of the safest way of installation, because there are high chances of accidents that happen in a scaffolding system rather than a scaffoldless. So when you install the cabin inside first, and then when you start, putting the architrave, it's much easier to construct in a more safer way. My only concern with scaffold-less system is that the architrave gets installed at the last. And it's the last activity, because you are working inside on the car and the well, and the architrave gets fixed, and thereby the door frame gets fixed at the last, and then the architrave, and then the passage flooring can begin, because these three activities are kind of interlinked with each other. So that does cause some problem, but I believe the speed of the installation is incredible, and it's one of the safest way so far.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of advantages are there, but in fact, this particular scaffoldless subject, I would like to address Susan. Susan, you are you started your career in elevator industry with a sales background, right? And those days when the evolution was taking place, the developers still needed a scaffolding for their painters to give a whitewash to the lift shaft. Remember that? And they said, in any case, I'm going to put up a scaffolding. So why are you again removing it and putting it that? One. Second is, the power supply was never a guaranteed thing, because scaffoldless normally is requiring a power supply, right? That is what it is. So from the sales angle, during this evolution happening, now situations are much better, but when this evolution was happening, how did you handle it as a part of convincing the developer, no, this is what it means?
Yeah, I think the answer lies in what Mr. Sarvesh said, that the speed was the criteria and will always remain the criteria. because the cycle time that which we operate in the builder's premises is something which everybody is trying to reduce as much as possible, because ultimately loose material is of no use to the customer. He would like to have the operational elevator in place as soon as possible. So the major benefit in scaffolders from a customer's point of view has always been the speed of execution. And obviously, from the industry point of view, it's a safer, better way to do work at site.
Okay, very good. Let me move to the next question. Once upon a time, the people at site were responsible for any incidents happening, whatever kind of incident, can be a small, big. Rajgopalan, what is your opinion on this area? Is it right that you just hold people responsible at site for any incident related to safety, or it is many people are involved?
To me, the people at the site are aware of the conditions at the site. So they are the first person come to know about anything happen. For example, construction site is not only one party is involved. There are builders, there are developers, there are many other works going on parallelly. For example, vertical transportation industry is working in the shaft, and some of the people, electrical wiring will be done in the lobby level. And there are many other parties are involved in that. So knowingly or unknowingly, some other persons hindering the work of the other person. So all the people at the site should feel responsible, and they should report to each other on the incidents happening. And if the people at the sites are reporting the incidents, then we can jointly work with the developer and the other subcontractors to ensure the safe working of every individual in the site.
Yeah, okay. So that's so who is the person responsible? The person at site, or is it the person sitting in the office, or how does the joint responsibility, if it is there, work?
It's everyone's responsibility. It's not only the site people, it's not only the office people. For example, if I am a project manager, my subcontractor working at the site, and if he is undergoing some kind of a difficult situation, he cannot manage the customer, then project manager has to get involved and speak to customer to give the proper working condition to my own subcontractor or my own fitter. Or even if some of our technicians are going to the site, and if they are working there, and if there is no proper working condition for them, then it's a responsibility of the respective team leader or person to ensure to talk to customer or to talk to the concerned parties and make a proper working condition for them. So it's a responsible of each and everyone in the chain.
What is your opinion, Sarvesh, on this?
Uday, I am online now.
Oh, okay.
Looks like.
Come on, fantastic. We can hear you, but we can't see you, but we can still.
I can see everybody
You can
else.
hear us very clearly, right? Can you hear us?
Oh yes, I can hear you now. I can see you also.
Okay. Oh, you can see me, but we can't see you. I can see
No,
you.
no,
now.
he's
I can
there, sir.
Yeah, he's there. Sir is there on the top.
Okay, we are on the question number 3. After everybody finishes, I would like to put a few comments on this.
Sir, please go ahead, sir. We are all waiting to hear you.
You can take over the thing. What is
Okay, the concern here is if anything that happens on the site, or if anything is supposed to happen on the site, it is generally the person who is directly involved on a day-to-day working is considered as responsible. But in the current scenario, when we say that we have a systematic safety management system working, or a safety management system has been implemented in the company, it is the responsibility of each and every person, starting at the CEO of the company, going right down up to the last workman at the site. Invariably, if you do a good RRCA of anything good that is happening on the site, or anything bad that is happening on the site, including accident, and you do a careful and when you have a very unbiased RRCA or root cause analysis of this, invariably you will find the lacuna is somewhere up the line, not directly with the workman, but maybe the supervisor or even the senior manager, or even sometimes I would say the chief executive of the company. He has not properly instituted the safety management system in in the entire chain of organization, and therefore it has happened. So it's not right to say that the site people are always responsible. It is everyone's responsibility to do everything good or bad. I'm in line with most other people are also saying the same thing, I suppose. But I would put the bigger onus on the senior management than on the site workmen.
Yeah, Soman and Raj, I think both of you will talk from the elevator point of view, but generally a site safety, as is which is in fact I would come to Sarvesh about it. Do you think we need to do a lot of cultural change by educating even the developer? Because many times the developer appoints a local contractor who does not know head or tail of what safety is all about, or maybe even if he knows, he finds it too costly, or his rates go up if he has to implement many of the safety processes which are required. So how do you do it as a cultural change in the real estate and the elevator industry? I would in fact want Mr. Sarvesh to start on that, and Mrs. Soman probably to add what can be the initiatives taken to bring about this cultural change.
Yeah, thanks. So I think it's a very important topic, Udayji. So because as you rightly pointed out, safety is about culture. And this culture is from the principal employer to the contractor to the subcontractor. At all levels, this culture seeps in. Fortunately, what has happened is because of some major accidents in the past, the authorities have been extremely strict on ensuring that the principal employer gets held. So far, the accountability was less, because you could easily get away with a few, rounds of here and there stuff. But nowadays, the authorities are extremely careful, extremely strict. It's a good thing because now it has made us more serious about safety. So what at VJ Developers, what we have done is initially we did have a budget for safety in our ERP system, in our engineering and estimation. But now we have done 3 standards of safety, which is silver, gold, and platinum. Depending upon where the project is, what is the client or the status of the project. Silver is your basic minimum safety levels that are required as per the government norms. And then, you can upgrade it to another, by another level and so on. My experience has been that this can cost us anywhere in between 25 rupees per square feet to roughly about 150 rupees per square feet is the cost that any developer, that is the range in which this silver to platinum standards of safety can help. Now, ideally, all lives do matter, and we all should take an effort to make sure that basic fall prevention methods are taken care. Basic hard hats are kept on site. Basic first aid requirement is given. You do have a safety officer who is looking at all these things. So if you give the site the authority and if you give them the budget, then I think project managers at their level are competent enough to take decisions and implement safety in its full sense. At VJ also what we have is we have something called as a 5-minute file. Now, what this 5-minute file does do is that in case there is an accident, for example, there is a workman who has probably fallen off or has breached the safety level and has probably injured or even died for that matter. So there is a file which is maintained, which is updated every, twice a week. This file, along with our senior representative, goes straight to the police station. He shows that file, what are the statutory compliances, what we have done as a developer, as a principal employer, who the person was, what is the BOCW, the Building and Other Construction Workers Act, what is the license that is there, the contractor all risk policy, the various statutes that are required, what safety measures were taken at site. Because what has happened also is that, it is quite fashionable to hold the builder accountable for everything. Kuch bhi ho gaya to builder ki, it is agreed. We are the principal employer. We are responsible. We are accountable. But sometimes we are made, scapegoats so to say, we are targeted heavily by certain sections of the media as well. So as long as I think you are taking responsible steps towards ensuring safety, and even in that case there is an accident, then don't put the builder under bars immediately. So this was the voice that was raised on behalf of the CREDAI, and the Maharashtra state government in their new unified development control rules have actually come out with the rules and protocol of what happens in case of an accident. So far this particular protocol was not there, and the police probably had the upper hand to decide whether it's a section 302 A case or a section 302, which is like intentional murder case, or it's a there was some serious charges that could be leveled. But fortunately, the new unified DC rules has gotten a lot of clarity on the responsibility of the builder, the architect, the structural engineer, the safety officer, the other third party audits, consultants, etc. So as long as you are maintaining this as a part of your culture, and even in that case there is some accident, then accidents do happen everywhere, but main thing is to minimize it. So yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, thank you, Sarve. In fact, with the permission of other panelists, I would like to go back to the earlier question, which Mr. Soman unfortunately couldn't join. In fact, I consider Mr. Soman, having been myself in the elevator industry, as the father of the scaffold to scaffoldless installation. He was the person who started it way back, I think in 2004 was the first initiative taken, right, Mr. Soman?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So can you throw a bit of a light, because Rajgopalan did talk about how did the evolution take place, why did it take place, but it would be a little more interesting to going back to the history. How did the whole thing start happening? I remember there was a WWJS standard which started there, where we said we have to move over to scaffoldless, but how much time will it take? How did that happen? So would you like to share some
I was listening to the earlier discussion on the scaffoldless or scaffolding installation. It is true that scaffolding installation, the installation with scaffolding is a time-tested and proven method. People feel that it is safe, but I have my own reservations on that, because scaffolding can in many cases. On the contrary, okay, another advantage is relatively low level of education or relatively low level of technical capability is required for scaffolding kind of an installation. You need to know only how to install the elevator parts. You don't have to really bother about what happens to the height on which floor and what when you are on the scaffolding. The issue here is that the amount of time it takes to do things on scaffolding installation is way much more than is done using the moving method or scaffolding installation, as everybody calls it. So it is both safety, and it is definitely not unsafe. It is definitely far more safer than the scaffolding installation, because you eliminate practically many things like falling, fall hazards or falling objects, failure of scaffolding, and many other things like which cause accidents invariably. So we have been promoting, or we have been advocating this scaffoldless installation, both from the safety point of view as well as the commercial point of view. I would say that the amount of time it takes to install a scaffolding, there are methods in the same time you can install the entire elevator. Okay? So it is practically from both points of view, from the safety point of view, from the commercial point of view. Shifted. The scaffoldless installation is probably what should be done.
Right. Comfort zone is now people are more comfortable with scaffolding. Okay, now this is a little from the developer's point of view. Sarvesh, you must have faced, you have constructed many residential and some commercial buildings in Pune. You must have always interacted with the elevator people. And the perception is between the developers that elevator people give excuses of safety. What is your take on this? I will
No,
not start the job until you give me this or until you
No.
give
So the excuse for safety is for the time it takes to install, or what is the excuse for?
final end of the day. Okay, let me put it in the right.
From a
final-
time perspective or from which perspective? Because
it's never you are constructing a building, right? For you, getting the building in time is always nice.
Yeah.
So you have committed to your customers. But when some roadblock comes in, then you get a bit flustered, right?
Yeah.
And then the elevator person says, sorry, Sarvesh, we cannot start the installation of your elevator because your machine room does not have a proper staircase, safe staircase for our people. Come on. You will say, oh, come on, there is a staircase, maybe it doesn't have a railing. So he says, sorry, I cannot start the installation. But for you, elevator is getting delayed, right? And unless you get an elevator, you don't get occupation certificate. So you are under pressure. So what is your perception, at least your perception, and maybe your colleagues' perception about some developers in Pune city?
so I think so safety has never been really fussy. I mean, elevator guys are not really extremely fussy about safety. And as I mentioned earlier, the culture of safety has also changed on site. We are now taking better care of all our contractors and vendors at site. So safety is not one of the reasons why any installation gets delayed. The causes of delay are multiple. They could be from three basic things, like the lift shaft is probably not cleared, the electrical systems are not in place, or the whitewash is not done. There is some leaking problem in the bottom of the lift pit. There is some water that is stagnant. There is some curing water that keeps dripping inside the lift well. So certain these things, and of course, payment is not made on time.
Oh, that's it.
So apart from these things, I don't think safety is a big of a. I mean, it's not really made of big fuss about.
It is extended to NHS. In my own,
Sorry?
it is also extended to like you said, water in the lift shaft. It can be a breeding ground for mosquitoes.
Yes, of course, yes.
Part
Yes.
Some
Yes.
The
Yes.
part of the area of gray, it's a very gray area.
Yeah.
I remember when I was handling the Mumbai airport, there was so much breeding of mosquitoes, and we had some Spanish erectors come in to install the Schindler elevator, and all of them landed up in hospital with malaria. So such was, and they were, and it was summer. So these we took it up with Mayal, but they said no, these are the condition. You better do it. We have to open the airport. The chief minister is starting it. So even at an infrastructure project like that, there is a lot of pressure. So I would just, maybe you have been probably nice to the elevator people and lucky enough that nothing of that excuse came in. Anyway, so let's move to Raj. Raj, this is again, we're talking about two countries, Singapore, and we're talking about India. You've been in Singapore. Perception of every person in the world at Singapore is very advanced in every area, including safety. While India is not so advanced, because whatever the reason, we don't go into reasons for that. So what is your, I would say, difference on, if I ask you, make two columns, safety in Singapore and safety in India, what would you, how would you handle it?
Mainly, if you look at Singapore, their land space is very less. So they require a lot of planning, and obviously the high-rise buildings are necessity for them. So once the high-rise building comes into picture, automatically the construction industry, they focus, and then they develop the methodology to monitor each and every stage with the safe procedures. Because their resources are also limited, they have to depend on foreign resources to build their infrastructure. So whenever a foreign resources comes into their country, they have to take care of each and everyone with the safe working procedures. So the planning itself started with the safety culture in Singapore. So if you look at metro, almost 200 kilometers of metro network inside the Singapore. So being in a small country, they are running at 200 kilometers of metro, and within next 30 years, they are planning for 300 kilometers of metro network inside the city. So, and metros are used by each and every common public, and elevator and escalators are the mandatory requirements inside the metro industry. So they need to move people. So when millions of people are day to day using that elevators and escalators, automatically their governance require more stricter processes. So if you look at 70,000 units are almost operational in Singapore now, almost 70,000. So they come up with all the kind of procedures, safety, governance system, and everything in Singapore in the planning stage itself, so that they are advanced in now. And now the industry gone to the next level of certifying the lift technicians before they going to site and maintain an elevator and escalator, something like that. So now they have created a course for a lift technician to be certified by a government. So now they are that advanced stage. But in India, now the safety conscious is more and more there. Now the regulatory bodies are coming up with a new, much stronger codes requirements. It's not only in the elevator and escalator industry, in the general construction market also. Now value of the life of a person is most respected. So everywhere now we are coming up with the new codes. And if you take an example, BIS coming up with the adaptation of ISO in IS requirements. So earlier we used to have EN 81.1 as a base code and Bombay lift rules as a base code. But now we are coming up with a recent change, and which is in wide circulation now. We are adapting the ISO 8100 for India. And there are many other codes coming up, which gives a kind of instruction to maintenance, how it needs to be maintained, and how the lifts in the existing building to be modernized, or how the safety requirements needs to be captured. So all those equivalent to ISO standards are going to come in India. And if you look at Energy Department of Maharashtra, now they are going for an advanced step. They are going to introducing a governance system which will take care of the annual maintenance contract of the elevators. So they will ensure that the lift is properly maintained and properly tested, and it is safe for public usage. And they are coming up with the amendment of Act saying that it has to comply to the Indian standard requirements. So these are all the welcoming changes in the industry in India now, which will take forward in a very well direction in terms of safety.
That's good. And I think post-pandemic probably much better, because it should be a part of a new normal coming in, right? That should be good. Okay, let's move to Sarvesh again. Sarvesh, when you hand over a building to the society, they have all the things of appointing a managing committee, appointing a security guard. And many times the power supply can be a bit of a problem, and power supply goes off, or even if something happens in the lift gets stuck. Most of the times you'll train the security personnel, right? The security person has to release a brake. The elevator people are supposed to train him up. That's the normal way it goes about. It's not a very formal way, but that's the normal way it goes about. And many of this time, the security people, the quality of security people is a bit of a, I would say it's a separate subject of discussion. But there have been fatalities. End of the day, there have been fatalities because of that. So what is your take on that? How can we handle the situation and make it a bit, I would say, fatality proof, if it is possible?
So one of the main thing is panic inside the elevator. So what happens is generally customers do panic a lot. So whatever, I mean, my take on the elevator manufacturers is that if you can provide basic things inside the elevator, such as the light and fan on UPS, the CCTV and the intercom, and of course vision panel now is not allowed, but ideally vision panel, if it would have been there for low rise buildings, vision panel is still okay, but for high rise I believe it's not permitted. But if vision panel can be added somehow, so I think what happens is if we can lower the panic levels inside the elevator cabin, then I think 50% of your problems can be addressed. Of course, ARD is there. Automatic rescue device also does help, but my experience again has been that its efficacy is about 95%. 5% of the time still the ARD does not function the way it is designed to function. I think also what happens is that some software training needs to be given to our security personnel. That if there is an elevator malfunction due to electric power outage, then what should be your 3-4 things that need to be done. First is to comfort the person inside. Just make him assured that, boss, don't worry, you're not going to die in there. Just hang in there. I'm getting help. The response time has to improve. And maybe if the elevator company would have a smaller maintenance, most of them have now started these mobile vans wherein they give a quick response team, like a QRT, quick response team of elevators. And just the knowledge to the inside person that help is on its way and don't panic. I think that will solve most of the problems.
In fact, I moved to Susan on the same subject. Susan, with the advanced technologies coming into elevator, do you think this particular problem can be sorted out or addressed too?
Yeah, I will continue from where Mr. Sarvesh left off. The fundamental basic safeties have to be there in every elevator because that's the beginning of conversation. And today the failure rate for those safeties are also quite less if you consider the number of rides which a person takes across the world. Like there are billions of rides happening in an elevator, in its tenure. When all the manufacturers do have a practice of conducting, safety orientation programs, training the security personnel who are there at site for the first response. But nonetheless, you're dependent on, the individual himself. So I try to treat it from a technology perspective in terms of what's going to happen in the industry. So in the years to come, you would see that there would be what is today an electromechanical product. You would see more electronics, more digitalization coming into picture into this product. And the user interfaces would focus on emergency rescue particularly. This is a trend. It is already prevalent in many of the developed countries, and it would soon come to India as well, because now we have the necessary infrastructure to support that kind of initiative. So IoT solutions, elevator management solutions are definitely on the cards, which would enable easy troubleshooting of a breakdown to avoid a situation where you're dependent on the person who is going to conduct the rescue or keep the passengers in the hands of that person rather than in the manufacturer. If there's a technology alternative, the passenger rests with the confidence that it is the OEM that is managing the situation for them. And as buildings grow taller, this challenge is going to become even more tremendous. If you see, the world is racing towards having a building that would be, let's say, 1 kilometer tall. And what's the impact on design when you look at speeds that are going up 14 meters per second and beyond? The impact on the safety, obviously, the safety systems need to design or have the capacity to take a braking load, which will be significant as that of an Airbus landing. So that's a kind of technology which we are looking at, where innovation on materials, innovation on the kind of safeties which are going to come out is definitely going to be focused on. So you are going to see digitalization, which is going to help in this situation, and you're going to see new innovations, which is definitely going to change the scenario when it comes to emergency rescue.
Yeah, thank you. So that digitalization is the key thing, which is probably going to make this magic happen, right? Okay, this question is to all of y'all. So let's start with the lady. With high rises becoming the norm, even for affordable housing projects and in tier 2 cities, what are the multiple facets that need to be contemplated at the micro and macro level when it comes to the safety aspect? So Susan goes first.
Yeah. So when we talk about affordable housing, I think, we're looking at taller buildings definitely, because space is always a constraint. But I think my reach out to the industry here would be to design sustainable buildings, because traditionally people have been very, very conservative when it comes to using or allotting space for services like elevators in buildings. So they always would like to keep one passenger and one service elevator to cater to the requirement, regardless whether the building is 10 stops or 20 stops. So it doesn't work that way, because it puts tremendous amount of pressure on the vertical transmission system, which is the lifeline of the building. And the more you continue to abuse the system, obviously the more negative impact would be there, even from a safety perspective. So designing appropriately, especially affordable housing, would have higher density of population in the buildings. So designing appropriately is one of the fundamental keys on sustainable initiatives for affordable housing. Also, I'll also talk about digitalization. The building elevator can integrate with multiple building systems. Now, I can talk about closed circuit cameras, CCTVs. So you have digital CCTVs today, which can detect an untoward incident in an elevator. It can give an alarm to the elevator. It can trigger an emergency reaction. So when we look at buildings with high congestion of population, I would recommend that the industry looks at these design standards where you have integrated applications coming with the elevator. You could also look at the fire systems. You have integrated fire systems which would come into place both for primary recall as well as secondary recall. Very important. You have functions which are built into elevator control like the riot system. So you need to look at how to evacuate your building in the minimum possible time. So as you go taller in buildings and more where the population is more intensive, and you could have population of different criteria or different age groups, a whole lot of diversity coming into picture. Systems need to be easy to use, foolproof to use, and they should work in emergencies.
Okay, good. What about Sarvesh, you next on this subject?
I think Susan has rightly pointed out almost all the aspects. Just to add, I think so waiting time is a key element in affordable segment, because generally you tend to give lesser number of elevators to save cost, and that increases the waiting time for a high rise. So, how can logic and the controller logic, how can it be programmed, designed in order to reduce waiting time? And also, as she rightly mentioned, CCTV, Internet of Things, IoT, and all the latest technology needs to be given regardless of whether it's an affordable or a mid-segment or a high-end project. You can probably play with finishes like stainless steel or powder coated, but don't play with these basic minimum things. So if a guideline or a white paper were to be published in the form of a design manual for the safeties in elevators, then I think it will help the industry create a lot of awareness.
Yeah, Mr. Soman, you're there, right?
Yeah, I am there.
Okay.
I 100% agree with these gentlemen and the lady as far as the technical or the electronics that we need inside the elevator or inside the controller and all that, safer and all that. But at the same time, I would also want the elevator companies to increase their interaction between the customer and the elevator company itself by letting them know that elevator getting stuck or elevator safeties, what to do, what not.
We have some problem in the internet.
Do's and don'ts. If we are able to educate, I think the incidences will come down. At the same time, it is also necessary to educate other agencies like fire departments and police departments and people like that, that in case of emergencies like fire emergencies and all that, how the elevator should be used or should not be used, that kind of a thing. I mean, if you remember, we had a Thane accident where there was a fire in the building and 6 firemen died inside the elevator, just because they didn't know how to use the fire elevator. So the customer interaction and elevator people interaction should increase somehow.
Yeah, Rajgopal, your last this thing on this question before I move to the final question.
Yeah, I agree with Sarvesh and Susan. Concentrating on the design and making a simplified interface to the societies, that would help. And mainly adding to Mr. Sudhirji's comment on awareness of safe usage of elevator and escalators, where our vertical transportation industry along with builders can contribute on their life cycle maintenance of the elevators and escalators and continuous education of safe usage. Till we are seeing people are using elevators and escalators in a different way, which it should not be used. So that's the one thing which we need to concentrate. And once the societies are built up, the maintenance part is not being taken care regularly. So that also which we need to insist continuously in the market to educate them why the proper maintenance of elevators and escalators is required.
So education and collaboration. In fact, that brings me to the last question. This is to the whole panel, and we will start with Mr. Soman. Now that the pandemic is practically getting over, I would say, I'm being positive about it, at least by, if not by mid of this year, end of the year. What do you think can be the strategic approach towards safety specifications and monitoring them, and become all the more essential? And how can a partnership be developed between developers and the original equipment manufacturers join hands to ensure this? Because today, not only elevator industry, but many other industries have practically collaborated, become partners, so that the whole society can do a better and contribute positively to the human mankind. So in this particular case of safety with elevators and the people, how can it be done? So Mr. Soman, I start with you, being the senior most. Now,
Yeah,
what do you think? Though you're still a elevator industry person, though you're retired, even I'm retired, we are still elevator industry, but we
Yes.
feel that something should be done. So what do you think should be done?
I would again start with the same funda that we had to recognize the value of life somehow, okay, and make it known to everyone. I mean, then to the elevator people, the mechanic, the erectors, the site people, the developer, and everyone, that life is important, very important. Commercial aspects are also important, but life is equally important. So do everything that is needed to have a person who is working on the site, whether he's an elevator man or just a ordinary different kind in a different trade on a site. His life is important, and everything needs to be done to protect him. Okay, that is one. Secondly, for the people who are using the elevator, I'm talking about the elevators which have been handed over or which are in use. The technology part is good. It should be promoted as much as possible. But we have to also remember that we have a couple of 100,000 elevators of the older generation where the technological improvements are way beyond possibility. So we have to live with these elevators for some more years. And therefore, the only way is to increase the safety of people is by increasing the interaction between the knowledgeable people on safety and the less knowledgeable people on safety, which are the customer people or the elevator passengers. Okay, and also other agencies. So interaction between these people have to increase. And of course, in the new elevators to come, we should try and promote as much of technology getting pushed inside the elevator as possible. That will probably change the scenarios substantially.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Soman. Sarvesh?
I think this can be jointly worked out through both the associations on behalf of the Lift Manufacturers Association and CREDAI. If we can form a committee to probably draft a white paper for elevator safety, because what happens is, even as developers, the current trend is to go in for a bulk order or a bulk purchase. Now, what happens is that when we pull in orders, of course, it's a good negotiating tool. But when we say that we have 100 elevators or 150 elevators spread across, say, 10 or 15 developers, then obviously everything else takes a back seat and the costing takes the front seat. And what happens in this case is that we start to forget what are the basic minimum requirements for safety and quality at site. And we just both have to rake through a number and then we agree upon a number without really putting in our thought on, what is this number for? And for that few lakhs of rupees, we probably end up subconsciously or unintentionally sacrificing these two critical points of quality and safety. So I think if a common minimum program, so to say, can be devised, drafted, by experts like yourself or someone in the industry, and it could work like a guideline for us developers to choose the right kind of elevator and keep the temptation of negotiation a little secondary, then it will, I think, give a lot of benefit to our customer, and it will reduce accidents at site, it will reduce breakdowns, and it will obviously improve our brand value, because why certain elevator companies are well known is because they don't negotiate prices, but they give an excellent quality. And I've never really heard of these elevator companies the breakdowns are almost negligible, and vice versa. Some of them. So I think if we could draft something like this together, then this could really, prove a win-win situation for both the associations.
Yeah, in fact, it's a very good idea. We should do that. In fact, most important part which I could get from you is the focus has to change from the commercial part of it to the actual technical part of it. If that is done, then safety, there will be no kind of a price tag against safety, because safety is unnegotiable element. There cannot be, okay, I'm going to save so much and so much because of the safety. No, it is there. And that's I think the cultural aspect and the human aspect which has to be done. Okay, let me move to Susan on the final question. What is her perspective, especially you being in sales as well as projects? You must be under a lot of pressure of different opinions coming on you, right? So how do you handle it? What is your take on it?
I think the learning of the last year with the pandemic has been the resilience of the human race, and the significance that so many governments across the world took the call that human life was more important than economy. So here again, I would say it rests a lot with the users or the buyers of elevators to really push the industry to deliver higher standards of safety continuously, which of course many of the reputed brands continue to do, but I would say across the board to push for better products and more reliable products, and it will be done because everybody in the industry works to serve the customer. Nonetheless, I would also say that there is a huge amount of work happening in the engineering industry. With, you have today computation, simulations which happen with computer softwares, which can take a worst case scenario and work on products to really design it at a very high level of factor of safety. So those things do continue to happen. I think industry continues to work on having literally a zero breakdown product. What's going to be relevant in India specifically, I think Mr. Soman spoke about it, is the aging of elevators and the huge impact of modernization, which is really not an easy thing to do in an occupied building. But it's a challenge which the industry needs to gear up with, along with the users, that to make the end product safer for passengers and everybody who is in that particular premises. So it's going to be a huge challenge, and I think we should as an industry gear up together to take it on.
In fact, that reminds me the recent decision taken by Mr. Nitin Gadkari. The cars should not be beyond a certain period, at 25 years.
Absolutely.
Still a big period. Something of that law should come on the elevators, because aging, whether it is an elevator, whether it is a car, or whether it is, for that matter, touch wood, nothing, even a human being, has its own repercussions. So there has to be some kind of a package in injecting some life into it, renovating it, whatever it is. So I think that
Can we do it for buildings as well?
the buildings also, I think
It will give business to all of us.
There are thoughts about the structural part, yeah. All about the structural guarantee which he is talking about, and a lot of people are now kind of modernizing the buildings structurally. Otherwise, the buildings which are near the sea coast in Mumbai, the South Mumbai has done that. Okay, the last Rajgopal, and I come to you on this subject of what can be done.
I would like to again iterate on my first comment. Safety, we cannot or we should not learn from mistake. It must be proactive.
I agree.
With the cost pressure exists in the market, we should not compromise on the safety, and it should be taken up as a joint responsibility. As Mr. Sarvesh said, it should be the joint responsibility of the elevator industry and the developers to continuously insist on the requirements to ensure the minimum safety standards.
Great. So basically, I'll just summarize in a few words. Safety is a absolutely unnegotiable element, be it the elevator industry, be a building industry. The human lives are involved in it. So I don't think there is even a question of even discussing that, right? We have to take all the precaution. Yes, the perception of some people going overboard on the safety, that is something needs to be handled depending on the situation. That definitely is there. And in our democratic country, it becomes even more important to handle the press media, which is what Sarvesh mentioned in one of the incidents, because they can go a little bit overboard and the agendas can be different. So this is something, a matter of situational handling, what I would say. But what is more important going forward, now that the pandemic is practically coming to an end, I'm being very positive about it. How can we, in fact, the good part of it is Sarvesh is a part of CREDAI, maybe use CREDAI, I would not say use not a right word, but CREDAI and the elevator industry come together and probably do something. Now that something is to be defined in the probably next 3-4 months. I will ask the organizers to practically talk to the relevant people as we go forward, but it's an initiative which I think as panel members, we should commit to take this responsibility. We can carry it forward to whatever best possible to make the industry safe. I'm not talking about only elevator industry, but the building industry and the elevator in the building industry safe. So with that, I would request Anita to come in and say the final concluding words.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful to hear all your point of views. And as an organizer, like he said, I think there is a real need for having a consistent, this kind of approach to be taken where you bring the, attention towards quality and safety on a continuous basis. This should not be something which is just one time done in a year kind of a thing. So maybe, someone like us and being in Elevate World India as a publication, we should take that initiative to, on a continuous basis, bring people like you all together to have a very healthy discussion and debate on these kind of things, wherein the interaction between the industry and the buyers are there on continuous basis. So I think we would do more of such things in the future too, and look forward to all of your support in bringing the best of the practices to be known for the people. Thank you so much. And it was wonderful having you all, and looking forward to seeing you all soon again.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Sarvesh and,
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Mr. Soman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day. See you.
Have a nice day. Bye.